Specifically,
Chronic obstructive lung disease, or emphysema, is a major cause of death in Australia, and smoking is the major determinant of that disease. All smokers are prone to develop acute episodes of bronchitis.
For example, we don't know
When
what
these
the best
infections
dose
occur in
is.
patients with already damaged lungs, they can cause severe respiratory problems, often leading to hospitalisation and even death. The Newcastle team has researched those problems
So what we're
for
hoping
12
to do
years.
is
They will continue their study
next
here
year
in
migrate
Newcastle
up
for another 2
into
winters,
the
and then in
lungs
England
so
for
that
2
they
winters.
produce a
Spokesman for the team,
protective
Professor
coating
Robert Clancy,
of
said
the
the discovery of
surfaces
the agent
of
is
the
a major
lungs,
breakthrough.
which is where the protective coating is needed.
Creating an antiseptic coat on the lining of the lung. And the way it does that, and I think the trick is that it does it best by first getting the person to eat the tablet and stimulating the workshop, the machinery which is associated with the intestine. And from the intestine, it travels up in the bloodstream in cells, and the cells secrete this antiseptic coat, which we call antibody.
The seminar at the Newcastle University was attended by experts in the field of geology,
in Newcastle. That is not so. And the Charlestown conglomerate member Corey syncline case we saw here, which the laws of classical mechanics, these materials are isotropic, they are homogeneous, and they are on top part of the structure. It becomes part of the foundation.
Producing clay minerals
It is that range of classical mechanics, I guess,
However, such soils expand and contract under the weathering process, rendering some ground in the Newcastle
And this is
region
basically in
unstable.
response to it. That expansion and contraction is our principal problem, which we get here, and which we get in the Wollongong area and west of Sydney, where we've got the coal measures. So it is a local problem. It's not a catastrophe. It's not a major problem. It creates problems with local government, with roads, and creates problems with individuals with their own houses, which might be cracking or slipping or foundations moving a little bit. It's a niggling problem. It costs everyone money. And that is why we're having this seminar, basically in response to what the community has asked us to do.
The Gown of the Year competition is held in Melbourne each June and is one of the highlights of the Australian fashion calendar. Budding designers from around the nation compete to create the best outfit in a number of categories from sportswear to ball gowns. For the third year, the Adamstown Lions Club brought the show to Newcastle for a very large and appreciative audience. The competition is organised by the Mannequins and Models Guild of Australia, and 3 of the best mannequins in the country were on hand to parade the designs. 2 fashion design students from Newcastle Tech College, Catherine Smith and Slobodanka Obradovic, entered the competition. While neither of them won a prize, their designs were very well received by the hometown audience. The growing success of the Gown of the Year presentation seems likely to ensure it will become a fixture on the Newcastle fashion calendar.
Donna Proctor's performances at the Pan Pacific Games in Tokyo have added much weight to the opinion that she is one of Australia's most promising swimmers. Following the Games, she is now rated amongst the world's fastest women swimmers over both 400 and 800 metres. In the 400 metres, she won the bronze in a swim that she rated as her best in the championship.
It was my first overseas medal, racing against the Americans and the Canadians.
She collected a silver medal as a member of the 4x200 relay team, which slashed the Commonwealth record in the world's 3rd best time ever recorded for that event. In the 800 metres, she finished 4th with a swim that was 2 seconds faster than her previous best. Coach Eric Arnold rates Donna's swims as very impressive and says she is now not just a candidate for the Commonwealth Games in Edinburgh next year, but has established herself as a medal prospect.
This is Salisbury Cathedral, seen through the eye of Newcastle University's new urban scope. It's based on an American idea, and there are other such devices in New Zealand and Sydney. Anybody can buy one for the modest price of $35,000. At Newcastle Uni thought they'd save the money and make one themselves. Designers Jeff Richards and Peter Thomas found their urban scope was much cheaper than the foreign models, and not satisfied just to reproduce the original design, they added a computer pilot to replace the steering wheel control unit and produce smoother pictures like these.
The main purpose of the urban scope is as a teaching and research tool for students, so that they can see exactly what their buildings will look like at eye level as people will actually experience them, rather than as models usually are, seen from a great height. But it's also going to be very useful for members of the local architectural profession, because they'll be able to make video films of their proposals and show them to their clients, and also to local community groups and planning authorities to show them exactly what the impact of their proposals will be on the existing environment.
In making the device, the designers turned second-hand bits and pieces into a precision instrument. Their parts from cars and home video units were just kudos of manufacturing Newcastle's urban scope on foot.
The urban scope has this miniature periscope which is attached to this video camera. Now the periscope will scan the model building in true perspective, which is later shown on a TV monitor.
So now Newcastle University architecture students have another toy to play with. And if they can keep the computer students and electrical engineers off it, their studies will benefit greatly from this ingenious innovation.
Once on the paddock, the odds mean nothing, and a good struggle for the vital break is assured. West have been the club to beat for seasons, even though they've not won it every year by any means. But this year, at this time, they've not been as impressive as one would have expected. Injury has taken its toll, and the team has lost its renowned defensive pattern somewhat near the ruck and its sharpness at the scrum base. As has been well known for years, they are at their best in broken play. Once they make a break, they generally score. It's also obvious to me that Gary Martini must play in the pack. Without him, they are ineffective. They have the spirit, and if all fit and firing to not only win tomorrow, but on September the 8th. Curry of the players we've come to know and respect over the years, and that may be the key to their many good but less than brilliant performances over the latter part of the season. They are getting older as a group. They beat South last week, but did not deserve to. South lost their cool and threw it away. To their credit, though, Curry held their head. Curry will need a big improvement on that for trouble West.
Ball and all, this is Williams.
The season's best-kept secret was revealed today when Goannas captain coach Bruce Starkey failed to take the field. And their bad luck continued as Lakes cruised through the first half to claim a winning break 16 points to 2. Cessnock, though, contributed to their own downfall with a lacklustre performance, surrendering possession of the wheels and showing a distinct lack of commitment this time. Honey halfback Johnny Hunter ever looked like breaking the Seagulls line and was rewarded with a try right on through time. Finally, it was 5 tries to 2, with Peter Walsh the top scorer with a try and 7 goals. Some would say that only Western Suburbs stand between Lakes and the title. The Cessnock aren't quite gone yet, but if Bruce Starkey can't play next week, they look to be in trouble, as they are a leaderless legion without him. The scores once again: Lakes 34, Cessnock 14. In reserves, West 22 beat Lakes 16, their first loss, and it was 12 all in third grade, requiring a Tuesday night replay.
Newcastle's own yellow submarine has well and truly taken shape. When completed, the $400,000 vessel will resemble this cruiser used around the Barrier Reef. It's based upon the same principle as a glass-bottom boat, although the viewing area is set into the sides as windows. Although it's not a true underwater vessel, the Newcastle company behind the venture, Yellow Submarine Proprietary Limited, hopes the catchy name will help it become a major tourist attraction as it's launched in the waters of Skull Bay. Proprietor of the Port Stephens Marina and builder of the cruiser,
vessel.
Bill Hollier.
Well, it will be called the Yellow Submarine, but it won't do the things that we traditionally know a submarine will do. It's actually a semi-submersible.
And how far will it resemble a submarine?
Well, from appearances, it will have most of the features that are common to a submarine.
A union spokesman says they have also passed a vote of no confidence in the senior administration of the prison and have called for an inquiry to be held. The issue at the centre of the dispute is the level of punishment given to the prisoner who the union says committed the assault. According to the union, the officer, Robert Bell, was elbowed in the midriff. The prisoner was then placed in his cell for 24 hours before being allowed out. The union says the punishment was not sufficient, and the man should have been placed in a segregation unit and transferred to another prison. The man allegedly committed a previous assault at Chestnut Correctional Centre and was subsequently transferred to Maitland. However, Maitland Prison Superintendent Alan Penny said the degree of punishment is left to the discretion of individual prison management, and he did not consider the offence warranted segregation. Penny said the prisoner had been charged with assault and had appeared before Maitland Court. When contacted, a spokesman for the Office of the Minister for Corrective Services said the Commission and Union had agreed some time ago to certain procedures for the settling of disputes, and the Union had not followed those guidelines. The Union disagreed. The men will meet again in Maitland tomorrow morning to decide if further industrial action is needed.
The company employees who would do just about anything for a bit of relaxation on the job, today's blood donations to the Hunter Valley Transfusion Service were a twofold exercise. The mobile unit, in association with the Red Cross, travels as far north as Scone and south to Lake Munmora. The unit is always seeking new donors, and NBN's contribution was greatly appreciated. Meanwhile, a colourful cast of 1,000 gathered together to produce a commercial, marking the festivities for
I tell you what,
celebrations are believed to be the biggest kind of birth, which offers free entertainment to the family.
There's 2 weeks to it. The first week is basically family entertainment and the second week youth matara. And each of the weekends, the Saturday has a range of medium projects of various kinds, and each of the Sundays has one big outdoor event. The first Sunday it's the Stockton Games on the Stockton foreshores, followed by a big harbour spectacle. The second week it's the Centenary Picnic at King Edward Park, followed by Silver Fire, and the third weekend it's the Grand Parade.
How successful is it likely to be?
Oh, I hope very successful. There are thousands of people now involved in it, but time will tell.
Even during this morning's competition for the lighter weight lifters, there was plenty of grunting and groaning at Newcastle University's Oxmurray Stadium. Top weightlifters from universities throughout Australia gathered in Newcastle yesterday for the two-day competition. More than 50 lifters competed in the traditional Olympic events of snatching and clean and jerk, as well as in the new sport of powerlifting, which includes bench presses, squats and deadlifts. Records tumbled during the competition, with Newcastle's Helen Smith breaking 5 Australian records for the over 40 class. The other star performer was Queensland's Andrew Smith, the national powerlifting champion in the 67.5 kilo division. He broke 8 Australian university records. The Newcastle University team re-established itself as the best in Australia, regaining both the men's and women's teams events they won at the championships in Brisbane last year.
The machine which arrived today in Sydney is known as a linear accelerator and is worth $1.5 million. It's the main range machine used in the treatment of cancer and will be housed in a specially designed room at NewMed 2. Physicist John Stewart will supervise its installation over the next 2 months. He says the machine, which may be operational by the end of the year, has a number of special features.
This particular machine has special features that it can treat at 7 different energies, 2 X-ray energies and 5 electron energies, which gives us a very wide range of beams of radiation which will enable us to treat almost every possible kind of cancer.
The situation has been described as critical, with only 26 volunteers and supervisory staff on hand to cope with the 470 patients. At Stockton, the nurses have provided a skeleton staff, but there is still a need for volunteers. Stockton nurses will meet again tomorrow afternoon, and Morisset nurses will meet tomorrow night to discuss the possibility of continuing their strike over the weekend. Nurses at Hunter Hospital began their meeting half an hour ago. They decided not to go out on strike at yesterday's meeting. It's hoped that talks in Sydney between the unions and the government will end the strike. The dispute is over rationalisation of psychiatric and mental retardation hospitals, changes to nurse training, and the plans for more community-based care for patients.
I'm afraid you're holding us up, okay?
Allocations were announced by the federal and state ministers for local government. The Commonwealth Government Assistance Program had $195 billion to divide among the state's councils this financial year. Gosford received a 20% increase of more than $500,000. The city has a growth rate of 4.5%, and local government Minister Stewart says this necessitates expanded services in almost every area of council activity. Wyong received the highest increase in the state of almost 23%. Shire President Tony Sheridan says the council had to prove it was efficient to gain the extra funding.
When the Grants Commission was here, they told us, spelled it out very clearly, that those councils which are more efficient will attract a greater grant. So I think I'm entitled to take some licence on that and submit that because we got the highest grant percentage-wise in New South Wales, that we are the most efficient council in the state.
The growth rate in the area is 7%, and it has added problems of 20% unemployment and an ageing population.
One of the council's priorities is sewerage, and it hopes to have 3,000 homes in the Mannering Park, Lake Munmora, Chittaway and Tuggerah areas connected this financial year. This is Janelle Provost reporting. Tea gardens in Hawk's Nest look like something out of the snowfields today after a freak hailstorm hit about 11:45. Houses, cars and caravans were damaged. Full details on that story tonight on NBN News at 6.